So here we're going to be mixing up a platinum silicone called Mould Star 15. This can be mixed 1-to-1 by weight or 1-to-1 by volume. So 1 part of part A and 1 part of part B. And yeah, we'll do this by volume. But before we measure it out, we need to just pre-mix part A and part B to make sure that any ingredients that are settled are stirred in. So you're going to get a nice size mixing stick, get it down to the bottom and just give the bottom a good scrape. And just make sure that there's no settlement that's occurred at the bottom of the container. You can typically feel it down the bottom there. This is feeling not too bad. You can just check the flowability, that there's no lumps and no sediments that have compacted at the bottom. That feels good to go. I'm just going to do the same with part B. So this is a very important step, especially if the product has been sitting on the shelf for a couple of weeks or a couple of months. You will definitely notice that there is some fillers that have settled down to the bottom that you need to pre-mix back into the system. Okay, so once you're happy that everything is nicely pre-mixed, we're then going to measure out part A and part B. So let's start with part B here. So for this, we're just going to measure out, I think, about 50 mils of A and 50 mils of B. So when you're doing it by volume, just make sure you do have a little measuring container that has little markers for you, so don't guess the volume. You do need to just measure it out accurately by volume. Okay, so there I've got 50 mils of part B. Then we're going to take 50 mils of part A. Namaste. Yeah, we've got 50 mils of part A. And then we're going to blend the two together. So it doesn't matter if we pour A into B or B into A. So we can just get one across to the other. And as the two come into contact, our pot life will start. On the Mould Star 15, we've got a 50-minute pot life, so we're not in a huge rush here. We've got a bit of time to mix it nicely. So when you're mixing, it's quite important to use the appropriate size mixing stick for the little batch that you're mixing. Here we're mixing a very small quantity of 100 milliliters, and so the small tongue depressor does quite a nice job. But if you are doing a bit of a bigger batch, then certainly a larger mixing stick, you know, if you're mixing up a kilo of product, then something a little bit larger, this size would be a lot more appropriate. Also, very important to scrape the sides and scrape the bottom of the container through the process of mixing. And then another little tip is to transfer the materials across and to just mix it again. It's sometimes a bit tricky to get all the material properly mixed on the sides and bottom of the container. So this little tip here of transferring the material across to a new container and mixing it again just eliminates any unmixed product which can remain tacky and spoil a mold. Okay, so just another little mix. And then you can be quite assured that part A and part B have been properly blended. So as mentioned, this has a 50-minute pot life, and this will then set up in about 4 hours at about a 23-degree room temperature.